one button Ember Fusillade. Not gonna lie, this isn't the first attempt I've tried making this build work, but unlike past failures, this version, hands down, best build I've ever played. And honestly, it's really not even close anymore. With that being said, I want to go over two things real quick. First off, the footage you're seeing in the background is 6 mod, it's Giga Juice, Tower Stack, Quant, just literally the hardest the game has to offer. The second thing you should know is the gear that character's wearing is a little on the expensive side. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not headhunter expensive or anything, but still, I prefer you at least know when you're walking into a build that's a little more on the expensive side than not. With that being said, as a resident broke boy myself, I'm always trying to look out for the broke boys out there. In the timestamps, there's a section, it's labeled broke boys. Look, just admit it. And I spent a few hours testing it and thoroughly making sure it actually works. It does take quite a bit of time to actually make an entire, budget version of a build, but I figure it's probably worth it. I don't really know where to put this, so I'll just mention it right here, I guess. If you've ever seen me do a 0 to hero, I plan on doing one right now because, hey, I'm having fun with PoE 2, figure why not. The entire thing is going to be streamed from level 1 until the end, and it's going to be a Lich crossbow only run where I have to wear crossbows literally from level 2 all the way until the end. No idea how hard that's going to be, but hey, that's the plan. So while I'm not uploading, I'll be streaming the entire time. Okay, enough of that. Let's kind of go over the idea of the build and how it works. Alright, so when things are a bit too complicated, I find it better to just go in game and explain it straight up. Okay, so as you can see, I cast Ember Fusillade and I'm getting a random number of projectiles, takes a second, shoots out. The first thing you need to know is that this process of it shooting these out is duration based. So compressed duration is more or less a mandatory support. Put that in, it becomes a lot more consistent. In order to get a lot of extra projectiles on the skill tree, there's these wheels here that give extra projectiles. It's not always 100% consistent, but if you scale these, and you can also add 25% into your wand, more often than not, you're going to cast a bunch of these, and it makes this kind of machine gun feel, right? All right, so you see the footage in the background. I'm casting Ember Fusillade. That shoots out, hits a bunch of mobs, kills them, and then that procs cast on crit. Cast on crit shoots another Ember Fusillade, shoots it all out, and that whole time, I'm literally just walking, kind of making this seamless machine gun-esque playstyle. So I'm pretty much just attacking once every, I'd say, I don't know, 2.5 seconds, and that's pretty much it. Now on the bottom left, you can see I have 10,000 energy shield. My life is going up and down like a roller coaster, and this is because I am utilizing probably the strongest tech in this entire league, Undying Hate and a Bloodletting Jewel. And this is where the build gets a little bit more expensive, and that's why I opened the video talking about budget. So first off, I think we should probably start with the Undying Hate. This is a timeless jewel from PoE 1. It works the same way, but if you don't know, a timeless jewel basically redoes a lot of these Atlas tree nodes. The only thing you care about is that it changes this. Black Flame Covenant to Sacrifice of Blood. For example, if I took this and I put this here, it would change CI and it would change Conduit, also to Sacrifice of Blood. Now when you buy an Undying Hate, you don't care about this number right here. You don't care about none of these words here matter. All you need to know is that when you buy it, it has to say Tech Rod. Not these two, it just has to say Tribute to Tech Rod, and that will give you Sacrifice of Blood. Sacrifice of Blood says regenerate 1 life per second per 8 lives spent in the last 8 seconds, and it gives you more life cost. Long story short, you want more life cost, because you can see right here, I cast, my health's gone. Cast, my health's gone, but my regen is going up. While I'm mapping with this plus cast on crit proccing, I said anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 depending on how many mobs I hit. Every now and if I wanted to, I could throw in a fireball. I almost never use fireball, but if you need a burst of regen or clear speed, it's there, you can use it. And all this excess regen will go into my energy shield because I combined this with Zealot's Oath. So my health is getting sustained by Leech from the Bloodmage, regen, and then when it's topped off and I hit a bunch of mobs, it goes straight into my ES, and as you can see, my ES is pretty much topped off the entire time. And if we combine that with the Bloodletting gem, this replaces life tap, and it gives us more damage for spending more life. And with that, you basically have a immortal build. Now, this setup is just a setup I prefer. You could run a Comb's Heart setup, you could drop cast on crit and just go for a normal Ember Fusillade setup. There are literally 3 or 4 different ways. There's gonna be a timestamp section. It's gonna be alternative ideas, different ways you can build it. This is what I settled on because, I don't know, energy shield gives me dopamine and I like it. Okay, there's not many skills going on, so I'll just go ahead and hover over them and explain kind of the idea. So, Sigil of Power, this is on our offhand. We're running Magnified Area, Rapid Casting, Prolonged Duration, and Efficiency. The idea here is that Sigil of Power, you put it on the ground, it gives you a lot of damage. This is only used for bosses. Cast on Crit, literally just noticing that I didn't buy a level 21 Cast on Crit, that's kind of funny. but Ember Fusillade, Life Tap, Zenith, because we're not using any mana, you can just put Zenith in here for free, 30% more damage, no problem. Considered Casting, and Boundless Energy. Like I said, there's a budget section that kind of explains the alternative version. Go check that out if you need it. And then we have our normal Fusillade, Bloodlettling, Zenith, Considered Casting, Unleash, and Compress Duration. Now, one thing I'll mention is Compress Duration is kind of it's a cooldown check. If you feel like you want more damage, you can take this out, put in another damage link. If you want it to cast faster, you could take out Zenith or Unleash or Considered Casting and put in Swift Affliction, because Swift Affliction actually has a less duration modifier. It won't give you damage necessarily, but it will make it come out quicker. Personally, I find that this setup right here is all I need in terms of making it, well, as you can see, do this whole machine gun type playstyle. And for our curse, just Ellie Weakness, Focus Curse, Prolonged Duration, Life Tap, and Heightened Curse. Make sure you have everything life tapped. And all the way down here, I have Living Bomb and Fireball. I almost never use these. In fact, I don't even think I have footage of me using them, but if for whatever reason there's a small corridor, maybe you're in a breach or, whatever, you can just press Living Bomb in between your Ember Fusillades, and when you need it, throw a Fireball out. I almost never use it, but it's there. And the good news about a one-button build is you're really not using many skills, right? It's just Ember Fusillade and Ellie Weakness. That's basically it. Okay, now for the gear, it's not really as min-max as you might think. Definitely made some mistakes because I self-made my helmet, I self-made my wand. Didn't do a perfect job, but it's good enough. So the wand, do not need a dueling wand. You can save yourself maybe 3 or 4 divines. I was trying to make a dueling wand work with Spellslinger, but ultimately I just found that I don't have a place for it in this build. If you want to add something in here, feel free. But personally, I just didn't feel like it was worth it. You can save yourself money on a dueling wand. You want fire damage, spell damage, +5, and then cast speed. These are pretty much guaranteed to make. I'm not going to go over how to craft it. More or less, you're just looking for these stats. Wrathpith, really not much to say here, right? It's an expensive unique, but any blood mage is probably going to want to wear it. Aim for like 3000 HP, put it on, you're going to get some good value out of it. The helmet is just generic ES. Did make this myself. YOLO'd for the hybrid, got unlucky. If I hit the hybrid, then I would have been happy, but it is what it is. Solid helmet, tri-res, big ES. Chest piece, pretty generic. I bought this for like 100 exalted orbs. You can just get crazy gear right now. For your amulet, I would say +3. You can either go cast speed or crit damage, crit chance, one of those combinations. And then I just threw on ES and threw in rarity. So the big thing you need to know is split shot. Obviously, I'll go over the tree in a second, but split shot is unbelievably good for playing with Snake Pit and then having that fork effect. 75% extra chance for additional projectile is, yeah, without this and Snake Pit, this build just kind of wouldn't work as well. Snake Pit, left slot, gives you fork for free. Seed of Cataclysm, not too sure how many people know about just like Chaos Res Implicits and stuff like that. It's called an enchant, so if you go over here, it's going to be called an enchant on the implicit. And they're not that much more expensive. Extra 16 Chaos Res made it easier for me to cap my Chaos Res, so definitely recommend trying to get one of these. Also, it increases the mana cost of skills, just straight up makes your mana cost even better. Just overall, solid ring. Although these are generic res, nothing special, I would recommend you try to get at least tier 2, tier 1 life on these 3 pieces. The chest, you're going to want as much ES as possible, right? And then the helmet, ES stacking. You can get a lot of ES on the helmet. Gloves, not quite as much, and same thing with boots. You can get a good amount, but nothing crazy. So I'd recommend get your life here and try to get over at least 3000 HP. For the charms, I went for a Nascent Hope, nothing worse than getting frozen. And I'd actually recommend Ignite. Ignite is still really annoying. I never died of poison or anything like that. But Ignite is just one of those things where if you get hit by a big Ignite, it messes with your regen and it's just really annoying. So I'd recommend Ignite, but you could also do like a slowing charm here if you wanted. In the skill tree, as usual, there's going to be a max roll setup down there. It's just going to be my imported character. That's basically it. But if you wanted to just pause the video at any point, go ahead and knock yourself out. I do have a weapon set up. Now for my offhand, we're just using it for Sigil of Power and the extra spell damage. But if I cast this, I just cast Living Bomb. You could use any spell here, but I just cast Living Bomb. It builds our life regen. I get to 4 stacks pretty quick. And on the tree, all these green nodes here, increase duration, mana, a little bit of ES, stuff like that. That's all just so I can get Living Bomb and keep my mana topped off. Because we're running Zenith, we want our mana to be as topped off as possible. So after I'm done doing this and charging it up on the boss, I want to recover my mana instantly. So you see, hit 4 stacks, hit my flask, switch, boss spawns, kill it, no problem. That's how I do that setup. And the red is my first weapon swap, which is just extra projectiles, damage, exactly what you'd expect. The only thing I would say about this skill tree is you could go here, extra cast speed, increased mana cost of skills. This is more damage, this gives you more regen. But at a certain point, like usual, once I hit a certain amount of DPS, I don't really care for it anymore. Some people obviously always want to get more damage. Feel free, knock yourself out. But I opted for 10k ES because I just didn't ever want to die on this build. Mission accomplished. The only time I ever died was when I was literally just not looking at my screen for about 30 seconds because I'm a football fan and stuff was happening. And that was the only time I died. Otherwise, generic skill tree, getting crit, ES. Really don't have much to say here. You could move the Undying Hate over here, but then you would lose these nodes. So I opted for this. Unfortunately, by taking this, you'd lose this crit will here. Any infusion stuff you were ever thinking about, you know, completely off the table. I think it's worth it though. Pretty good spot to put it in my opinion. And if you don't know about the Arcane Surge tech, long story short, moves our Arcane Surge from mana to HP, and I'm scaling the Arcane Surge here. So we get a little bit more life regen value out of this, which is why we get so much life regen so quickly. And that's basically it. That's the entire build. It's simple, it's strong, it's fun, but there's really not too much going on once you kind of wrap your mind around it. Now for the Ascendancy, Vitality Siphon, Sunder the Flesh, and then I'm stacking this. That's why I'm going pure ES. I did debate making an 1100 ES chest, but I just didn't feel like it was really worth it. I wouldn't gain much. I'm immortal already, so I was like, do I need it? And the answer ended up just being no, so I didn't really end up taking it. You could 100% get 12k ES on this build though, but what's the point of being more immortal in my opinion? Okay, so for the budget section, this is just some quick footage I just recorded, and I'm not wearing any of the stuff. You can see in the inventory, I'm not wearing anything. My jewels, I'm not wearing bloodlettering, and my tree is completely changed. There's gonna be a separate max rule down below that's called budget, so if you wanna see the budget section, just go ahead and look at that. As you can see in the background, it's completely fine. I think for budget, going for blood magic and having 0 mana is better. You can still run cast on crit. I'm opting to not run a Combs Heart or anything like that. Same setup, just blood magic. And the clear is completely fine. This gear is less than 5 divines. The wand's probably the most expensive part. The shield was literally 25 exalted orbs and everything else is barely 1 divine, honestly. Gear is just so cheap right now. And here, as you can see on the boss, the damage is completely fine. I completely messed up, for the record. I butchered the whole mana setup. I didn't even Ellie weakness her, so she should have died way quicker than this, and I just completely botched it. But as you can see, hey, still completely fine. +4 difficulty, no issues. So I'm not wearing a snake pit. You could easily just throw in another Seed of Cataclysm and get a nice damage boost. I'm just wearing my generic +3 amulet. This shield, like I said, was literally 25 exalted orbs. I think I have footage here of when I was looking through and buying it, but yeah, the gear is just really, really cheap. Budget version should be completely fine. Okay, so the biggest difference we'll be running on these skills is, it's not really a big deal. We'll be running Ellie Focus because we don't care about Ignite. Fire Mastery, there may be a better support to use instead, but I'm not really sure. When you have the cooldown reduction on the tree with the budget version, you don't need Compressed Duration, so you can run Unleash, Considered Casting, Fire Mastery, Ellie Focus. And then over here we'll have Fork, Ellie Focus, Considered Casting, and I'd still recommend running Boundless Energy. Just makes it a lot more consistent to upkeep. You could take this off again if you want a little bit more damage, maybe put in Fire Mastery as well, but I've always found that the cast on crit was better when I had Boundless Energy in. For the record, you could also put in, Energy Retention. I think it's a bit unnecessary, but feel free to mix and match, do whatever you feel like makes you more damage. And if you're lazy and you want the skill tree, then here it is. It's very ugly, reduced mana cost stuff. Maybe you don't need that down the road, but for me, I felt like it was easier to just manage. Crit nodes, less duration, blood magic, gem. Pretty much it. That's the budget version. Hopefully this helps you out. Okay, so the #1 alternative version that I would recommend is the Combs Heart version. Combs Hearts, they're not too crazy expensive. You could put this on. The downside is you would have no spirit, which means you would be playing just with this setup, and then you'd have to go get the duration down here, and you would go blood magic. This is going to be basically the budget version, and you could wear a Combs Heart. Even on the budget version, you could go with a Combs Heart. There's so many different ways to play a build that has too much damage and too much life regen, so feel free, experiment, do whatever you wanted. Personally, like I think I mentioned it before, my brain doesn't care for 6,000 health. In PoE 1, I like HP. In PoE 2, big ES is what gives me big dopamine, so having this giant bar kind of protect me, it just makes me happy, it makes me feel good, so I opted for Energy Shield. There's nothing wrong with going the Combs Heart version though. The only downside, I'm not sure how the playstyle is going to feel though, because if you don't have the cast on crit, you're going to be casting it more often, but this duration you're seeing right now would be a lot less because you'd have the less duration nodes down here. So, you know, feel free to try it out, experiment. There's literally no wrong way to build this build. I just don't know how it's going to feel. But I opted for this. This is what I landed on. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to start prepping for that 0 to hero and maybe squeeze in a few Elden Ring Night Rain games. But that's it for me. Have a good one. I'll catch you later.